Imagine being the weakest species in a galaxy full of predators. Imagine your desperate cry for help being met with laughter from those who see you as nothing more than amusing pets. Imagine watching your homeworld burn while alien civilizations place bets on how long your kind will survive. But what happens when those same aliens discover they've been terribly, catastrophically wrong about humanity? What happens when the weak species they've been mocking reveals they come from a planet so hostile that every other world in the galaxy is considered a paradise by comparison? What happens when Earth's children finally show the universe what it means to be born from a death world? This is the story of humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. This is the story of how the galaxy learned to fear the sound of human distress calls. This is the story of how Earth's children taught the universe a lesson it will never forget. Welcome to the moment everything changed forever. The communication chamber aboard the Zephyrian flagship buzzed with excited chatter as the alien transmission crackled through their universal translators. Admiral Kextar, his 6 eyes gleaming with amusement, leaned back in his command throne while his officers gathered around the holographic display showing the primitive signal's origin point. "Play it again," he commanded, his mandibles clicking with barely contained laughter. The human voice filled the chamber once more, desperate and strained. "This is Commander Sarah Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. Our colony on Kepler 442b is under attack by unknown hostile forces. We have lost 17 settlements in the past 72 hours. Our defenses are failing. We are requesting immediate assistance from any civilization capable of interstellar travel. Repeat, this is an urgent distress call from the human species. We need help." The bridge erupted in delighted chittering and mechanical whirring sounds that passed for laughter among the various alien species present. Navigation Officer Vexnil, whose crystalline body shimmered with mirth, tapped her data pad with one of her numerous appendages. "Admiral, our scouts confirm these humans come from the third planet in what they call the Sol System. According to our preliminary scans, their homeworld registers as a Class 12 death world on the Galactic Habitability Index." This statement caused even more laughter throughout the bridge. Captain Zorthak of the Hegemony Marines, whose reptilian features were twisted in a grin, slapped his knee with enough force to dent metal. "A Class 12? That's impossible. No sentient species could evolve on such a hostile planet. The gravity alone would crush most civilized beings, not to mention the toxic atmosphere and violent weather patterns." Admiral Kextar's expression shifted to one of curiosity mixed with continued amusement. "Are you suggesting these humans are somehow adapted to survive in such conditions?" "The scans must be wrong," interjected Science Officer Quindow, her purple skin flushing darker with excitement. "No species we've encountered can survive in environments beyond Class 8. These humans must be using some kind of environmental suits or terraforming technology to make their planet habitable." The Admiral gestured for silence as he studied the data streaming across his personal display. The human distress call continued to repeat on all frequencies, growing more desperate with each iteration. According to their long-range sensors, the human colony was indeed under assault by a previously unknown aggressive species. The attackers appeared to be using advanced plasma weapons and energy shields that outclassed anything the humans possessed. "Fascinating," Kextar mused, stroking his elongated chin. "These primitive beings actually think they deserve our help. Have they even achieved faster-than-light travel?" "Negative, Admiral," reported Communications Officer Beltar. "Our analysis suggests they're using some kind of crude chemical propulsion system. Their distress signal is being transmitted through what appears to be an outdated quantum entanglement network. Primitive, but surprisingly effective for such a backward species." The bridge crew continued to chuckle as they watched the tactical display, showing the human colony's defenses crumbling under the alien assault. Red markers indicated destroyed settlements, while yellow ones showed areas under heavy attack. The humans were clearly outmatched and desperate. "Should we respond to their transmission, Admiral?" asked Lieutenant Commander Yexval, though his tone suggested he found the very idea amusing. Admiral Kextar considered this for a moment, his 6 eyes studying the data with calculating interest. Why not? It's been several cycles since we've had such entertainment. Open a channel. The communication system hummed to life, and Kextar's image was transmitted toward the human colony. Within minutes, a response came back. The human commander appeared on their main screen, her face streaked with dirt and sweat, her primitive armor scorched from battle. Behind her, explosions lit up what appeared to be a command center under siege. "Thank the stars," Commander Chun breathed, relief evident in her voice. "We received your acknowledgement. I'm Commander Sarah Chun, ranking officer of the Kepler, 442B Colony Defense Force. We're under attack by an unknown alien species. They appeared 3 days ago, without warning, and began systematically destroying our settlements. We estimate enemy forces at approximately 50,000 ground troops with air support. Can you provide military assistance?" The bridge erupted in renewed laughter at her direct, almost demanding tone. Several officers had to steady themselves against their control panels as they wheezed with mirth. Admiral Kextar composed himself enough to respond, though his amusement was clearly visible. "Greetings, primitive human. I am Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. We have indeed received your quaint distress call. However, I'm curious about something. Our scans indicate your species originates from a Class 12 death world. Surely this must be some kind of error." Commander Chin's brow furrowed in confusion. "Class 12? I'm not familiar with your classification system, but if you're referring to Earth, then yes, that's our homeworld. Admiral, with respect, we don't have time for extended introductions. Our people are dying. Can you help us or not?" The audacity of this primitive creature demanding answers from a superior galactic civilization sent fresh waves of laughter through the bridge crew. Captain Zorthak was now laughing so hard that tears were streaming down his scaled cheeks. "My dear little human," Kextar said condescendingly, "you clearly don't understand your place in the galactic hierarchy. We're advanced beings from civilized worlds. You are primitive creatures from what you claim is a death world, though obviously that classification must be wrong since no intelligent species could survive such conditions." Commander Chin's expression hardened. "Sir, I don't know what your problem is, but right now my colony is being attacked by hostiles with superior firepower. If you won't help us, at least direct us to someone who will." This response caused Captain Zorthak to nearly fall from his chair with laughter. Listen to her. She's giving orders to an admiral of the Zephyrian fleet. The arrogance of these primitives is simply delicious. Admiral Kextar leaned forward with predatory interest. "Tell me, little human, what could you possibly offer in exchange for our assistance? What resources does your primitive species possess that could interest the mighty Zephyrian Empire?" Commander Chun was quiet for a moment, glancing off-screen as another explosion rocked her command center. When she turned back, her eyes had gone cold. "We can offer you something your advanced civilization apparently lacks, Admiral. We can offer you courage." The bridge fell silent for a heartbeat before erupting in the loudest laughter yet. Officers were now holding their sides, some literally falling over with mirth. The idea that these primitive beings could lecture them about courage was the funniest thing they'd heard in cycles. "Courage," wheezed Navigation Officer Vexnil. "The little pet thinks she can teach us about courage." Admiral Kextar wiped tears from his eyes as he struggled to compose himself. "My dear Commander Chun, courage is a luxury for species that have already achieved galactic prominence. We have no need for such primitive concepts. However, I am curious about something else. You claim to be from a death world, yet you appear remarkably fragile. How exactly does your species survive in such an allegedly hostile environment?" Commander Chin's jaw tightened. "Earth isn't allegedly hostile, Admiral. It's the most dangerous planet in our local stellar group. We survive because we're harder to kill than we look." This statement brought fresh peals of laughter from the alien crew. Science Officer Quindow was now analyzing the humans' biological readings with scientific fascination. "Admiral," she reported between giggles, "her species appears to be carbon-based bipeds with an extremely inefficient cardiovascular system. They breathe a corrosive oxygen-nitrogen mixture that would be toxic to most civilized species. Their bone structure seems absurdly fragile, and their skin appears to offer no protection against radiation or temperature extremes. If this represents adaptation to a death world, I'd hate to see what their ancestors looked like. Commander Chin's image flickered as another massive explosion shook her command center. When it stabilized, her face was grim but determined. Admiral Kextar, I'm going to make this simple. We're fighting a superior enemy force with everything we have. If you won't help us, fine. But I want you to remember this conversation when you hear what happened here. And what exactly do you think is going to happen, little human? Kextar asked, his tone dripping with condescension. We're going to win, Chin stated flatly. The bridge fell silent again before exploding into the loudest laughter yet. Officers were now gasping for air, and several had activated their personal life support systems to avoid passing out from mirth. Win, Captain Zorthak managed to wheeze between fits of laughter. You just told us you're outnumbered and outgunned by a technologically superior force. How exactly do you plan to win? Commander Chin's expression never changed. The same way we always have, Captain. By being too stubborn to die. Admiral Kextar was about to respond with another mocking comment when his tactical officer suddenly straightened at his console, his amusement evaporating. Admiral, the officer reported, his voice now serious. I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Sol system. Something big is moving this way. Kextar's attention snapped to his displays. Define big, Lieutenant. Sir, the energy readings are off the charts. Whatever's coming is generating power signatures that rival our own dreadnoughts. Multiple contacts, closing fast on an intercept course for the human colony. Commander Chin smiled for the first time since the conversation began, though it wasn't a pleasant expression. That would be the cavalry, Admiral. I suggest you find a safe distance. Admiral Kextar stared at his sensors in confusion. According to their readings, the approaching human fleet was indeed massive, but that was impossible. These were primitive beings from a death world who hadn't even mastered faster-than-light travel. How could they possibly field a fleet capable of interstellar deployment? Commander, he said slowly, our scans indicated your species lacks FTL technology. How is this fleet arriving so quickly? Chin's smile widened, becoming almost predatory. Who said anything about faster-than-light travel? Admiral? We've been out here a lot longer than you think. The implications of her statement sent a chill through the bridge crew. If the humans had been establishing colonies and building fleets without FTL technology, it meant they had been planning and preparing for interstellar expansion for decades, possibly centuries. The level of patience and long-term thinking required for such an undertaking was almost incomprehensible to species accustomed to instant galactic communication and travel. Impossible, breathed Science Officer Quindao. The logistics alone would be staggering. The resources required to support interstellar colonization without FTL technology would bankrupt most civilizations. Commander Chin's expression had gone cold again. You really don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? You think we're primitives because we don't have your technology. You think we're weak because our planet is hostile. But you've got it backwards, Admiral. We don't have your technology because we didn't need it. We're not weak despite our hostile planet. We're strong because of it. Before Admiral Kextar could respond, alarms began blaring throughout his ship. His tactical officer was frantically working his controls, his earlier amusement completely forgotten. Admiral, the human fleet has just dropped out of what appears to be some kind of subspace tunnel directly behind the enemy formation. They're opening fire immediately. The main display shifted to show the tactical situation around the human colony. What they saw defied everything they thought they knew about primitive civilizations. The human fleet was massive, consisting of hundreds of angular, aggressive-looking warships that bristled with weapons. But more shocking than their numbers was their behavior. While most civilized species would attempt communication, demand surrender, or at least issue warnings before opening hostilities, the human fleet simply arrived and immediately began systematically destroying everything in their path. Their weapons weren't as advanced as Zephyrian technology, but They were used with a ruthless efficiency that was terrifying to observe. "By the void," whispered Captain Zorthak, his earlier laughter now a distant memory. "They're not even trying to capture prisoners." Commander Chin's voice cut through the stunned silence on the bridge. "This is what you don't understand about Deathworlders, Admiral. We don't fight wars the way you do. We don't wage war for territory or resources or political advantage. When we fight for survival. And when you threaten our families, our homes, our children." She paused as the display showed a massive enemy dreadnought exploding under concentrated human fire. "Well, you don't get to surrender." The alien crew watched in horrified fascination as the human fleet carved through the enemy forces with clinical precision. There were no fancy maneuvers, no elegant tactical formations. The humans simply surrounded their enemies and pounded them into scrap metal with overwhelming firepower. What made it even more terrifying was the complete silence with which they operated. No battle cries, no taunts, no communication at all. They simply killed with mechanical efficiency. Admiral Kextar found himself gripping the armrests of his command throne as he watched the human fleet methodically dismantle what had been considered one of the most formidable raiding forces in the galaxy. The enemy ships, which had been terrorizing the Outer Rim colonies for months, were being destroyed with such systematic efficiency that it resembled less a battle and more an extermination. "Tactical analysis," he commanded, his voice hoarse with shock. Lieutenant Commander Yexval, his four hands dancing over his console with increasing urgency, provided a running commentary that grew more disturbing with each word. "Admiral, the human vessels are employing what appears to be kinetic projectile weapons accelerated to near-relativistic speeds. Their targeting systems are achieving 97% accuracy rates despite engaging multiple targets simultaneously. Enemy shields are proving ineffective against the sheer kinetic force of the human weapons." Science Officer Quindal leaned over her own console, her purple skin now pale with fascination and fear. "Sir, I'm detecting something unusual about their weapon signatures. These aren't energy weapons like we use. They're launching physical projectiles at incredible velocities. The amount of energy required to accelerate mass to these speeds should be impossible for a species at their technological level." On the main display, Commander Chun continued to watch the battle with grim satisfaction. Behind her, the explosions that had been rocking her command center had stopped. The human colony was no longer under attack because there were no attackers left alive to continue the assault. "Ow!" Admiral Kextar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated these attackers possessed weapons and shields superior to anything your species should be capable of producing." Commander Chun turned back to face the camera, and for the first time, Kextar noticed the predatory gleam in her eyes. "Because you fundamentally misunderstood the situation, Admiral. You assumed we were the victims. You assumed we needed rescuing. You assumed we were weak because we called for help." She paused as another enemy ship exploded in the distance, its destruction reflected in the viewport behind her. "But we didn't call for help because we were losing, Admiral. We called for help because we wanted witnesses." The chilling implications of her statement settled over the bridge like a suffocating blanket. Captain Zorthak, who had been silent since the human fleet arrived, found his voice again. "Witnesses? Witnesses to what?" "To what happens when you attack human colonies," Chin replied matter-of-factly. "You see, Captain, we learned something about galactic politics very early in our expansion. We learned that the galaxy is full of predators who view newcomers as prey. We learned that showing weakness invites aggression. And we learned that the only way to prevent future attacks is to make the consequences so severe that no one else would dare try." Navigation Officer Vexnil's crystalline body was now flickering with nervous energy. "You're saying this was planned? The distress call, the apparent vulnerability, all of it." "Not planned exactly," Chin admitted. "We genuinely hoped we could handle the situation with our colonial defense forces. But we also knew that if we couldn't, we had contingencies in place." The distress call served multiple purposes. It told our fleet where to find us, It identified any potential allies in the region, and it recorded the responses of civilizations like yours for future reference. Admiral Kekstar's 6 eyes narrowed as the full scope of human cunning began to dawn on him. You were testing us. The distress call was as much about gathering intelligence on galactic politics as it was about seeking assistance. Partially correct, Chin nodded. We needed to know who would help and who would mock. We needed to know who could be trusted and who would need to be dealt with eventually. Your response has been very enlightening, Admiral. The tactical display showed the last of the enemy vessels being destroyed by concentrated human fire. The battle had lasted less than 30 minutes from the moment the human fleet arrived. An enemy force that had been systematically destroying human settlements for 3 days had been completely annihilated in half an hour. This is impossible, Science Officer Quindell muttered, studying her readings. According to our models, a species from a death world should be struggling just to survive, let alone mounting interstellar military operations of this scale. Commander Chin's expression softened slightly, almost as if she were explaining something obvious to a child. That's because your models are based on civilizations that evolved on paradise worlds, officer. You developed on planets with gentle weather, abundant resources, and stable environments. You never had to face extinction-level events on a regular basis. You never had to compete with apex predators for every meal. You never had to develop technology specifically designed to kill efficiently because your very survival depended on it. She gestured toward the viewport, where the debris field that had once been an invasion fleet continued to expand. Earth isn't just hostile because of natural disasters or climate. It's hostile because everything on our planet is trying to kill everything else. We didn't develop spaceflight to explore the stars, Admiral. We developed spaceflight to escape a planet that was constantly trying to murder us. And when we got out here, we discovered that the galaxy operates on the same basic principle as Earth. The strong survive, and the weak become food. Captain Zor Thak leaned forward, his reptilian features tense with concentration. But you called for help. That suggests weakness by any civilized standard. Does it? Chen asked with a slight smile. Tell me, Captain, if you were facing an unknown enemy with superior technology, would you face them alone out of pride, or would you call for assistance from potential allies? The ability to request help when needed is a sign of intelligence, not weakness. The problem is that none of you were potential allies. You were just another group of predators waiting to see if we were worth eating. The bridge crew exchanged uncomfortable glances as the truth of her words sank in. They had indeed been evaluating the humans as potential prey, not potential allies. The idea of offering genuine assistance to a species they considered primitive had never seriously crossed their minds. Admiral Kekstar found himself reassessing everything he thought he knew about galactic civilization. Commander, you mentioned that you've been expanding without faster-than-light technology. How long have humans been establishing interstellar colonies? Our first colony ships launched over 200 years ago, Chen replied casually. We've been seeding the local stellar region with human settlements ever since. Most of them are completely self-sufficient by now, with their own industrial bases and defense forces. Kepler 442b is actually one of our newer colonies, which is why it was still vulnerable to this kind of attack. 200 years of secret expansion. The implications were staggering. While galactic civilization had been ignoring the Sol system as an insignificant backwater, humans have been quietly establishing a vast interstellar empire using slower-than-light technology. The patience and long-term planning required for such an undertaking was beyond the comprehension of species accustomed to instant gratification and rapid technological advancement. How many colonies? Lieutenant Commander Yexval asked, his voice tight with apprehension. Classified, Chen replied with a predatory smile. But I will tell you this, Admiral. Every human colony is defended by a fleet like the one you just witnessed. And every human colony has the coordinates of every other human colony. Touch one of us, and you touch all of us. The tactical implications were terrifying. If humans have been expanding for 2 centuries without detection, Their empire could span dozens of star systems. An attack on any human settlement would bring retaliation from the entire human military network, which apparently consisted of fleets capable of annihilating established military forces with casual efficiency. Science Officer Quindal was frantically running calculations on her console. Admiral, if their expansion timeline is accurate, and they've been maintaining consistent growth patterns, their total population could number in the tens of billions distributed across multiple star systems. Their combined industrial capacity would rival that of most galactic civilizations. And all of it hidden from our sensors and scout networks, Admiral Kextar mused grimly. How is that possible? Our intelligence services monitor all interstellar activity in this region. Commander Chen's smile widened. Because you monitor faster-than-light activity, Admiral, you look for energy signatures associated with warp drives and hyperdrive systems. You scan for subspace communications and quantum entanglement networks. But we don't use any of those technologies. Our ships travel through normal space using fusion rockets and antimatter engines. Our communications rely on laser networks and physical message carriers. We're invisible to your sensors because we're using technology you consider obsolete. The elegance of the deception was breathtaking. While advanced galactic civilizations relied on exotic technologies that left detectable signatures, humans had achieved interstellar expansion using brute force engineering that was beneath the notice of sophisticated sensor networks. They had hidden in plain sight by being too primitive for anyone to notice. Why reveal yourselves now? Admiral Kextar asked. You could have remained hidden indefinitely. Because we're ready, Chen replied simply. We've spent 2 centuries building our strength, studying galactic civilization through observation and infiltration, and preparing for the day when we would announce our presence. This attack on our colony simply provided us with an opportunity to make our debut under favorable circumstances. Captain Zorthak's scaled features had gone pale. Infiltration? You've been spying on us. Of course we have, Chen said matter-of-factly. How do you think we learned your languages, your customs, your technology levels, and your political structures? We've had human operatives embedded in galactic civilization for over a century. Some of them have achieved quite prominent positions in various governments and organizations. The paranoia that swept through the bridge was almost tangible. If humans have been infiltrating galactic civilization for decades, there was no telling how deeply they had penetrated existing power structures. Military secrets, political intelligence, technological data, all of it could have been compromised without anyone knowing. This is an act of war, Lieutenant Commander Yexval declared, his hands moving toward his weapon controls. Against whom? Commander Chen asked calmly. We haven't attacked anyone except in self-defense. We haven't stolen any technology, conquered any territory, or interfered with any legitimate government operations. We've simply existed quietly while gathering information that was freely available to anyone willing to look for it. Her logic was unassailable from a legal standpoint, which made it even more infuriating. Humans had technically committed no crimes under galactic law, yet they had managed to establish themselves as a major power without anyone realizing it. Admiral Kextar studied the human commander with growing respect and fear. What do you want, Commander Chen? What are your species' intentions regarding galactic civilization? We want what every species wants, Admiral. We want to survive and prosper. We want to protect our families and expand our territories. We want to trade with those willing to trade fairly and defend ourselves against those who would harm us. She paused, her expression growing harder. And we want to make sure that no one ever makes the mistake of underestimating humanity again. The human fleet had finished its systematic destruction of the enemy forces and was now taking up defensive positions around the colony. Their formation was textbook perfect, covering all possible approach vectors with interlocking fields of fire. But more ominous was the way they had positioned themselves relative to the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral, his tactical officer reported quietly. The human fleet has us completely surrounded. Their weapons are locked onto our position. Commander Chen noticed his distraction and smiled coldly. Don't worry, Admiral. You're in no immediate danger. You haven't attacked us, so we have no reason to attack you. But I thought you should understand your position clearly before we continue our conversation. The casual way she mentioned having weapons locked onto a superior alien warship was more unsettling than any direct threat could have been. It demonstrated a level of confidence that suggested the humans were not at all concerned about the technological superiority of Zephyrian vessels. You're not worried that we might have weapons and defenses beyond your capability to counter? Admiral Kextar asked. Should we be? Chen replied with amusement. Admiral, we've been studying your technology for decades. We know the capabilities and limitations of every major galactic civilization. We know that your shields are vulnerable to concentrated kinetic bombardment. We know that your energy weapons require charging cycles that create tactical windows. We know that your ships are optimized for fighting other energy-based civilizations, not kinetic weapon platforms like ours. Science Officer Quindal looked up from her console with obvious distress. She's right, Admiral. Their kinetic weapons would punch straight through our shields. Our energy dissipation systems aren't designed to handle that kind of physical impact. The tactical situation was even worse than Kextar had realized. Not only were they outnumbered and surrounded, but their technological advantages had been negated by superior intelligence and tactical preparation. The humans had turned the galaxy's technological sophistication against itself by developing countermeasures specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses of advanced civilizations. This conversation has been enlightening, Admiral, Commander Chen said, her tone becoming more formal. But I have a colony to rebuild and reports to file. I trust you'll share the recording of this encounter with your superiors and any other interested parties in galactic civilization. It's important that everyone understands the new reality. And what reality is that, Commander? Admiral Kextar asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. That humanity is no longer asking for help, Admiral. From now on, we're offering it. To those who prove themselves worthy of our friendship. 3 standard galactic weeks after the incident at Kepler, 442b, the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the crystal halls of Nexus Prime. Representatives from 47 major civilizations filled the amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, mechanical sounds, and telepathic static that the universal translator struggled to process. Chancellor Vex Mori, the ancient crystalline being who had presided over galactic affairs for over 3 centuries, called the session to order with a resonant chime that silenced the crowd. His faceted surface reflected the holographic displays showing the aftermath of what was already being called the Kepler incident. Fellow representatives, Vex Mori began, his voice carrying the weight of his enormous age and experience. We have gathered to address a situation that threatens to fundamentally alter the balance of power in our galaxy. 3 weeks ago, a species calling themselves humans revealed themselves to galactic civilization in a manner that has left our intelligence services scrambling to reassess everything we thought we knew about this region of space. The holographic displays activated, showing the complete recording of Admiral Kextar's encounter with Commander Chun and the subsequent destruction of the raiding fleet. The representatives watched in stunned silence as the human fleet systematically annihilated forces that had been considered among the most dangerous in the galaxy. Ambassador Tel Quinn of the Hegemony, her reptilian features twisted with concern, was the first to speak when the recording ended. Chancellor, our preliminary investigations confirm that these humans have been expanding throughout the local stellar region for over 2 centuries without our knowledge. Our estimates suggest they may have established colonies in as many as 60 star systems. A wave of shocked murmurs swept through the assembly. 60 star systems represented a significant interstellar empire by any standard. The fact that such an empire had developed without detection was unprecedented in recorded galactic history. How is this possible? demanded Representative Collinar of the Trade Federation, his mechanical voice processing the question with obvious electronic distress. Our sensor networks monitor all interstellar activity. Our scout fleets patrol every inhabited system. How could an entire civilization expand under our observation without being detected? Ambassador Yilseth of the Science Consortium, whose flowing tentacles rippled with agitation, provided the answer that everyone feared hearing. Because they use technology we considered obsolete. While we've been developing increasingly sophisticated faster-than-light systems, they achieved interstellar expansion using slower-than-light technology that our sensors are not configured to detect. They've been hiding in our blind spots for centuries. The implications sent a chill through the assembly. If one unknown civilization could achieve such expansion without detection, how many others might be out there? The galaxy suddenly seemed much larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Chancellor Vexmori's crystalline form shifted, casting prismatic light across the chamber. Ambassador Yilseth, what do our xenobiological experts make of their claims regarding their homeworld's classification? That's perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this entire situation, Yilseth replied, her tentacles writhing with obvious discomfort. We sent a stealth probe to investigate their home system. The planet they call Earth registers as a genuine Class 12 death world. The gravity is crushing, the atmosphere is corrosive, the weather patterns are violent beyond anything we've seen on inhabited worlds, and the native ecosystem appears to be engaged in a constant state of evolutionary warfare. Representative Mordak of the warrior clans leaned forward, his scarred features showing unusual interest. You're saying they evolved on a planet where survival itself requires constant combat. More than that, Yilseth continued. Earth isn't just hostile to visitors, it's hostile to everything living on it. The species that evolved there had to develop not just intelligence, but aggressive intelligence specifically designed for survival in a competitive environment. Every aspect of human psychology and sociology appears to be shaped by the necessity of defeating threats through superior tactics and technology. Ambassador Telquin's reptilian features had gone pale. Are you suggesting that humans are naturally superior warriors? I'm suggesting that humans are naturally superior survivors, Yilseth corrected, which makes them naturally superior at anything necessary for survival, including warfare. Their entire species has been shaped by selective pressures that would destroy most civilized beings. They don't fight wars the way we do, as political exercises or territorial disputes. They fight wars as survival challenges, with all the psychological advantages that implies. The Assembly digested this information with growing unease. Most galactic civilizations had evolved on relatively peaceful worlds where intelligence had developed to solve cooperative problems rather than competitive ones. The idea of a species whose intelligence had been honed specifically for survival warfare was deeply unsettling. What are their current military capabilities? Asked General Zarthok of the Defense Alliance, his multiple arms gesturing toward the tactical displays that still showed the destroyed raiding fleet. Unknown, admitted Intelligence Director Kexval, whose shadowy form rippled with frustration. Our analysis of the Kepler engagement suggests their weapons technology is actually less advanced than ours in most respects. However, their tactical doctrine and strategic planning appear to be centuries ahead of anything we've seen. They don't just build weapons, they build entire military systems designed to exploit the weaknesses of more advanced opponents. Explain, Chancellor Vexmori commanded. Their kinetic weapons are crude, but effective, Kexval continued. They accelerate physical projectiles to near-relativistic speeds using brute force engineering rather than elegant energy manipulation. The result is weapons that our shields cannot stop because we designed our defenses to dissipate energy, not to absorb kinetic impact. They've essentially made our technological sophistication a liability. Representative Colonar's mechanical systems whirred with agitation. Are you suggesting they deliberately developed inferior technology to counter our superior systems? I'm suggesting they develop practical technology to achieve military objectives, Kexval replied. They don't care about elegance or efficiency or technological sophistication. They care about results. And their results speak for themselves. The holographic displays shifted to show intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Human operatives had been identified in dozens of major organizations, some in positions of significant authority. The scope of their intelligence-gathering operation was staggering. "How long have they been spying on us?" demanded Ambassador Telquin. "Based on our preliminary investigations, at least 100 standard years," Intelligence Director Kexval admitted. "Possibly longer. They've had operatives embedded in military organizations, scientific institutions, trade guilds, and even some government positions. The amount of intelligence they've gathered about our capabilities, weaknesses, and internal politics is unprecedented." Chancellor Vex Mori's prismatic surface darkened with concern. "Director, are you telling this assembly that humans know more about our civilizations than we know about theirs?" "That appears to be the case, Chancellor. While we've been ignoring them as primitives from an uninhabitable world, they've been systematically studying us with the thoroughness of apex predators planning a hunt." The chamber erupted in heated discussions as representatives realized the full scope of human intelligence operations. Species that prided themselves on superior technology and sophisticated espionage services had been comprehensively outmaneuvered by beings they had considered primitive. Ambassador Yilseth raised a tentacle for attention. "There's something else we need to consider. According to our analysis of their expansion patterns, humans don't colonize planets the way we do. They don't look for paradise worlds with gentle climates and abundant resources. They specifically seek out hostile planets that would kill most galactic species." "Why would they deliberately choose difficult worlds?" asked Representative Mordak. "Because difficult worlds don't interest other species," Yilseth explained. "They've been expanding into territories that no one else wanted, building colonies on planets that we classified as uninhabitable. They've essentially been creating an empire in the spaces between our civilizations." The strategic brilliance of this approach was obvious once explained. By colonizing only the worlds that other species avoided, humans had eliminated the possibility of territorial conflicts during their expansion phase. They had grown strong in isolation while their potential enemies remained ignorant of their existence. What are their intentions? Chancellor Vex Mori asked. Do they pose a direct threat to galactic civilization? Intelligence Director Kexval's shadowy form rippled uncertainly. Unknown. Chancellor. Their public statements suggest they want peaceful coexistence and fair trade relationships. However, their actions suggest they're preparing for large-scale conflict. Every human colony appears to be heavily fortified with significant military capabilities. They're not building vacation resorts out there. They're building fortress worlds. Could they threaten our core worlds if they chose to? General Zarthok asked bluntly. The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. After several long moments, Intelligence Director Kexval provided the answer everyone feared. Based on their demonstrated capabilities and our analysis of their expansion patterns, yes. If humans decided to wage war against galactic civilization, they would pose a significant threat to all of us. Their military doctrine appears to be specifically designed to counter the advantages of technologically superior opponents. They've had centuries to study our weaknesses and develop countermeasures. Recommendations? Chancellor Vex Mori asked. We need to open formal diplomatic relations immediately, Ambassador Telquin declared. If they're as dangerous as our analysis suggests, we need to find ways to work with them rather than against them. Agreed, said Representative Colinear. From a trade perspective, humans represent a potentially enormous market. Their industrial capacity across 60 star systems could provide opportunities for economic partnership that would benefit everyone. General Zarthok's military mind approached the problem differently. We need to assess their full military capabilities and establish mutual defense agreements if possible. If they're willing to fight alongside us against common threats, their unique tactical abilities could strengthen the entire galactic defense network. Ambassador Yilseth's tentacles writhed with scientific curiosity. We also need to understand how they achieved this level of expansion and organization without faster-than-light technology. Their logistical and communication systems must be incredibly sophisticated to coordinate activities across such vast distances using slower-than-light methods. Chancellor Vexmori processed all the input before rendering his decision. The consensus appears to be that formal diplomatic contact is essential. However, we must approach this carefully. These humans have demonstrated superior strategic planning and intelligence-gathering capabilities. We cannot afford to underestimate them again. "Who should make first contact?" asked Ambassador Telquin. "I volunteer," declared Admiral Kextar, who had been silent throughout the session. "I had the initial encounter with them. They know me, and, more importantly, they know that I now understand what they're capable of. That might count for something in their evaluation of my diplomatic credibility." Chancellor Vexmori considered this proposal. "Admiral, you mocked them during your first contact. Are you certain they would accept you as a legitimate diplomatic representative?" "Actually, I think that might work in our favor," Kextar replied. Commander Chen seemed to appreciate honesty, even hostile honesty, more than false politeness. She specifically mentioned that our response to their distress call was enlightening because it revealed our true attitudes. If we send someone who pretends we always respected them, they'll see through the deception immediately. The logic was sound. Humans had demonstrated sophisticated understanding of galactic psychology and politics. Attempting to deceive them would likely backfire spectacularly. "Very well," Chancellor Vexmori announced. "Admiral Kextar will lead a diplomatic mission to establish formal relations with human civilization. His mandate will be to negotiate a general treaty covering trade, territorial boundaries, and mutual defense considerations." "What authority should I have in these negotiations?" Kextar asked. "Full authority to conclude binding agreements on behalf of the Galactic Council," Vexmori replied. "Given their demonstrated capabilities and strategic position, humans must be treated as equals in any diplomatic arrangement. We can no longer afford the luxury of condescension." As the session concluded and representatives began filing out of the chamber, many were already revising their understanding of galactic civilization. The emergence of humanity had fundamentally changed the balance of power, not just through their military capabilities, but through their demonstration that technological superiority was not the only path to galactic influence. The most unsettling realization was that if humans could achieve so much while hiding in plain sight, what other unknown civilizations might be out there, watching and waiting for their own moment to reveal themselves to a galaxy that thought it knew all there was to know about the universe?